Hello, hi everyone. This is the fifth video in the MUN IO TAX training video series. Now, this is the video where I'll show how to file your taxes through ufile. Again, this video is only a guide for a basic international student situation to help them get the taxes done. This no way represents the entire spectrum of what can be done to file your taxes. So again, this is just an example. So if you remember in the previous video, I showed you how to register for ufile, and now here I'll show you what we'll go for the ufile. So now for this filing purposes, now I've taken the example of a student who is an international graduate student with a part-time job at MUN, meaning Memorial University, and has some funding through MUN. So the student has one T2202A form, meaning tuition fee. He or she also has one T4A, meaning for scholarship or funding for the graduate program. The student also has one T4 through part-time job at MUN. Insurance premiums can be included, and I'll show you how to add in this video, and medical expenses can be included as well. So we'll go to ufile.ca now. So this is ufile.ca, and for those who don't know how to register, you can check the previous video number 4 for how to register for ufile. So I am in ufile.ca, and now we'll start new text file. So once you go in, it will start to generate the text file. Generally sometimes it takes some time to load the window because it's a big software and it's starting to make sure that all pages are loaded correctly. So we'll just wait for it to load. Meanwhile it's loading, we'll go further. So the first form is tuition fee form. Now if you see, this is what the tuition fee format form currently looks like. So it's basically listed on top, T2202 tuition and enrollment certificate. The name of program is here, number of months your part-time student will be here, full-time student will be here, and eligible fees will be here. So I have an example for tuition fee form. So if you see, this is a sample T22A form. This is from 2018, but I'm just taking as an example just to show you how to use it. So again, there will be name of program here, name and address of the student, which has been blacked out just for confidential purposes. Student number will be here. Now this is a form for 2018. Now if you are looking for a form for this year, you will see it in this format, meaning for 2019 you will see it in this format. And the advantage here is that it also has the social insurance number on your tuition fee form, making it more confidential, whereas for 2018 they didn't have this stuff. So now for this student, if you see carefully, for part-time and full-time, it says that the student was full-time for all semesters, meaning for 12 months for all 3 semesters, and he or she paid this much amount of tuition fee. Okay, so we'll go back. Hopefully the site would have loaded. No, it's still loading. Okay, so I just shut the window and I reopened it. So you'll see something like this, ufile.ca, and then when you click on sign in, it will show up this window. Now if you have followed my previous video, you should already have ufile account. You just add username and password and then you sign in. I've already filled it up here and we sign in. Once you sign in, you will see this window here. So you can launch for 2019, and if you don't have that, you can just click here and then you can press go and you will see this here. So now we'll click on launch, and that will basically bring up the ufile what we are looking for. So now this looks like multiple tabs here, but it is very straightforward if you follow the process. Now first is the identification tab, and whatever tab it's highlighted, that is what you see here currently. So now I'll just start filling my taxes, and this is just again an example. So I'll say Mr. and then my first name is Kilol, last name is Joxy. Now my social insurance number for international students generally starts with 9. So again, this is just a rough thing. I'm just adding random number which is not mine. So that's what I've added. Again, date of birth. Now for most students, date of birth is the same for whatever documents, but in case if you have different date of births, you need to mention the date of birth which you listed when you applied for Canadian, study permit or student visa. So mention the ones which is listed in the Canadian database so that it's relevant and it's same. So again, I'll mention any random date. Perfect. Now this question is here is province of residence on December 31st 2019. Now this is basically in order to help the software calculate the provincial rates of income tax. Now you write down or you mention whichever province you were in. So the situation here is a bit complex in the sense that I have had students asking that what if I was flying somewhere outside for 1 week or 2 weeks to enjoy my Christmas break during December 31st, then you don't mention that place. You mention the place where you are supposed to be for the entire year, meaning you are a student at Memorial University, then you are in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now the case is different if you moved to another province in December, or if you moved permanently somewhere else. But if you are flying for leisure or business trip or family visit or something, then you don't mention that place. But if you moved permanently to another province, or if you moved or if you change places, then yes. So for example, if you move to Prince Edward Island and you're going to stay there afterwards, then that is what you add. But if you are a student and if you are just out for 2 weeks and you're coming back, then you'll mention Newfoundland and Labrador. Now your marital status on December 31st. For most students it would be single, but I'll also cover one interested point on this is that most students may have spouse which are not here, meaning that they may be back home. So you don't mention separated, even though you are not together right now, but you mention married. The reason why I say is the separated here means that you are not staying together because you don't want to stay together. Whereas in most student cases, the spouse is back home because they are trying to, whether they are working there or they have family there or they are trying to, process the paperwork in order to get here. So if you are married and if you have a spouse back home, you write down married. And for most students who don't have any spouse, you can mention single. So for most students, it will single, so I'll mention single. Did your marital status change in 2019? Most of students won't have any changes. Gender, you can mention whatever you are, male or female. Now, once you have filled this basic information, which is identification, you will move forward. Now, before I move forward, I'll go back to something which will be helpful. So if you see here, the identification has first name and last name. Now, most of you may have middle name, meaning that there may be your father's name or any other name as a middle name. So in that cases, what you do is you just mention your first name and last name, and as I go forward, I'll explain you, in case if the tax return doesn't go through online, then what you can do is you can add your middle name after your first name with a space and then add your middle name just to see if it goes through or not. But generally, if you have first name and last name, that's what you add here. You leave your middle name outside. You don't add it unless and until it's required. And I'll tell you when it's required. So we'll move forward, we'll go next. Now this is mailing address. Now Students have questioned that, should I mention the address which is on my SIN number, or which is on my student permit, or my student visa. No, you don't mention those addresses, you mention your current address. So wherever you are staying right now, that is the address you mention. So I'll just mention a random number. So rural route or post box office number doesn't, it's not the case for most students, it should be fine. You can mention the city name, St. John's, province would be Newfoundland and Labrador, and your postal code is very important. Again, this is a random code. Now you don't need to mention care of, because most students take care of their post or their mail by themselves, so you can leave this empty. So whatever details you don't have, you can just leave it empty. Now if you have an apartment number like A, B or C, you mention that here. Now you don't need to fill all this up unless and until you move provinces or residences here. Otherwise you can keep this empty. For your mailing address, if it's same as home address, which is the case for all students, you say yes, and that should be good. You can mention your telephone number, but again it's not required, so that should be fine. Now we go next. So till now what we have done is we have given your basic details, meaning that your identification as well as your current address. Now language of tax return, for most students it will be English. Now for most students you will be filing for the first time, so yes. If you are not filing for the first time in Canada, you say no, but for most students it will be yes. Now most students won't own a foreign property which is above Canadian $100,000, so you say no. And did you sell any houses in 2019? For most students it will be no. Now again it will be no here, because you are not a diplomat, you are a student. Now this is a question, select where you were on December 31st, and you will select this option, not residing on Labrador Inuits land or community, because you are in St. John's. Now again you are an international student, so for your Canadian citizenship will be no. Now this is a good thing which I like about ufile as well as all other online softwares. Now you can receive email notifications from CRA, meaning that once you send the text file online or by normal mail, once they have processed your text file, they will send you a notice of assessment. So basically the notice of assessment means that it will be a summary of what they processed and how everything went, and you can get that through normal post. So if you don't opt for email notifications, then you will get it through the normal post or mail at the address which you mentioned in ufile. And if you opt for email notifications, you will get an email through this website or through this email address, and they won't send you the notice of assessment, but what they will do is they will give you a notification that the notice of assessment is available in your MyCRA account. Now what is MyCRA account? I'll go through it in another video, so that will be a separate video, but basically in nutshell, MyCRA account is to understand that they have all your tax documents online in CRA portal, and having MyCRA account is very beneficial, but you can only do that after you file taxes. So that will be a video followed by this. So for most students I will say you should opt for email, and you should say yes. And it's not necessary to use your MUN email, but you can use whichever which you will be using lifetime or frequently. So it is good to use your personal email, but I'll just mention MUN email here as an example, and then we'll proceed next. Now we are in the main core file. Will you be using net file to submit federal return electronically? We'll say yes. We'll keep it as it is. Now, will you be using NetFile to submit a prior year federal return? Now, it's a prior year, meaning that if you want to submit few years before 2018 or 2017, you can keep it as it is, doesn't matter, or you can select yes or no, but we'll keep it as it is. We are here now at CRA autofill my return. Now you can use autofill my return, but for most new students, especially first time income tax filers, you shouldn't do this. In nutshell, what autofill return means that the software will extract all the information from your MyCRA account and compile the taxes, so you don't need to add any details. But that is not the case for first time filers, so you won't select this. You will go next, and again you don't select express NOA. NOA means notice of assessment. Again, for newcomers this won't be the case, so you just go next. And now it's saying,
so once you are at the interview setup section, the first option is no income to report in 2019, meaning that if you did not have any employment income, you select this box, and if you had any employment income, then you do not select this box. Remember, scholarships, fellowships do not count as employment income. So if you had no employment income but only scholarship or fellowship, you can select this option. This is just to select that you did not have any income to report. Since in our example we do have a student with an employment income, so we won't select this. Now if you are filing the tax for the first time, you need to select this box, immigrant, emigrant, non-resident taxpayer. The reason for that is that this box will allow you to enter date of entry, as well as this box will allow you to provide income before you landed in Canada. So you select this box. Now we will scroll down and select the rest of the boxes as required.
is employment income. So you'll make sure this is checked because we need to add that information. Now all this doesn't apply to normal student situation, so we'll leave it as it is. Now you see there's T4A here, which is for funding, and as our example student has T4A, we'll go here. Now rental property income is a different thing than what most students pay. It is something which is for the person who owns a house and then gets the rent. So it's not for students, so you can keep it as it is. Now we don't have any of these forms, but if you have been through my first video, some students may have T5, which is interest earned on investment income. So if you have that, you select yes, but if you don't have it, you uncheck it. And then we'll go down. All of this doesn't matter. Again, if you have self-employed business income, you tick mark this, but that becomes a bit of complex situation, and I'll go into detail further. Now we do have tuition stuff, so we'll tick mark this. If you have medical expenses or insurance premiums, you tick mark this. And if you have any RRSP or any savings plan, you tick mark this, but most students won't have savings plan, so we uncheck this. Having a student tax-free savings account is not the same as the savings plan because those are different. So in most student cases, this you will uncheck because you won't have it. And if you have a child and he or she is in Canada, and if you have child care expenses, you tick mark this. But again, if you are a single student, you won't need this. And you can claim moving expenses. Now this is a gray area. So what happens is, for example, if you moved here from another country to here, you can claim moving expenses, but those moving expenses act as a credit to lower your taxable income. So if you didn't have a sizable taxable income, then there is no use of claiming moving expenses. Now moving expenses work as credits for the same year. Now if you want to have a good understanding of credits, you can go to my video for tuition fee and tuition credits, and that will give you an understanding how credits work. But again, moving expense is not required unless and until you have very high taxable income. and other deductions and credits, which is not the case for international student. And there wouldn't be any prior year information, so we uncheck this. So now if you go back up, you see what we have selected is T4, then T4A, which is for funding. Then we go down, and then we have selected tuition and medical expenses, and then we go next.
So once you select next, you will get an option of immigrant, or non-resident. So you select the first option. You immigrated to Canada in 2019, so you select plus. Once you are there, it will ask you for your date of entry. Now for this purpose, you will write down the date of entry on the date when your passport was stamped where you entered Canada, meaning whichever airport you entered. It doesn't need to be St. John's, Newfoundland. The date of entry is basically the port of entry, meaning the first place where you landed when you reached Canada. It can be Montreal, it can be Toronto, or it can be St. John's, depending on what type of flight you had. So please write down the date of entry when you landed in Canada. Now the second option is Canadian sourced income earned when you were not a resident of Canada. So what this does mean is that if you are not in Canada but you are still making Canadian income, then you select this option and mention that here. Now for most people who are entering Canada for the first time, they won't have any Canadian sourced income before they landed here. So since this is a compulsory or required option with a red asterisk, we'll just put $0 here, and here we'll just select the first option just to make sure that it goes forward. Now this third part of this is Canadian source plus foreign source income earned when you are not a resident of Canada. So what this means? This means basically that whatever you earned before entering Canada, you should mention that. So for example, if you're working back home, you mention the name of the country. Now you also mention the type of income here. Generally for most of you it will be net employment income, and you convert it into Canadian dollars and you mention here. Now for some of you, you may have not been working, and if that's the case, you just mention $0. But if you were working somewhere, for example, your last place of where you worked before you landed in Canada was Cuba, and you made around Canadian dollars $15,000. So that's how you mention it here. But remember, if you didn't have any employment income, then you need to mention 0, and you can mention the name of the country from where you came. Now these two are required. Now remember that if any amount you enter here will not be taxed, because this is a foreign income, meaning that you filed the taxes in your country where you earned. So Canadian government won't be taxing you for any income you list here, so nothing to worry about. They will just use this income in order to calculate few credits for the yearly tax filing as required. So this is what you do for your immigrant section. You put date of entry, the date when you landed, you write down the income, Canadian sourced income before you landed here, and foreign sourced income before you landed here, and then you go next, which is T4.
As soon as you go next, you will see the information generated here: T4, T4A, medical, and tuition. So now we are in the core of income tax filing. Now if you see here, it says T4 income. You click on this plus mark and it will generate a form where you submit your details. So I'll go back. So this is how T4 looks like. This is employment income, and this is an example of a T4. So our sample student has this T4. Again, you see the address is Memorial University. Now this is for 2018, but for you it should be 2019 because you're filing for 2019. So consider this as an example that it's a 2019 T4. So now we start filling the details. The employer's name is Memorial University. Memorial University. Now the employment income, it is box 14. So we go back to our T4 and we see the box 14 and we write down 11607.47. So 11607.47. Now if you are a research assistant or a MUSEP or a grad swap student, or if you are working as a coordinator at student unions, you are bound to have a good income, and this is the case I think the student had. Now the province of employment is number 10. Although you know that you are in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's always good to confirm. So box number 10 here is Newfoundland. You go back, you select Newfoundland and Labrador. Now again same thing, box 16, you go back, you see box 16, 490.53, sorry, so 490.53. Same box 18 is here, 192.68, 192.68. And the next box is box 20. We don't have anything here in box 20, so we leave it as it is. We don't need to add 00 or anything. We keep it empty. There's nothing in 52, so we keep that empty. For 22, we have here 130692. So for 22, we'll write down 1306.92. Now for 24, it is 1160.47. We add 11607.47. Now 26 is 11607.47. 11607.47. We'll scroll down. For 44, it is 145.76. 145.76. Charitable donations, there is nothing here, and the rest of the boxes are empty. So if the rest of the boxes are empty, we won't be concerned with that. We'll keep it as it is. Now before you move forward, it's always a good idea to check the boxes in the reverse order. So I'll start with 44, 145.76, 145.76, that's correct. 26 is 1160.47, 26 is 1160.47, and so on. So you will understand that you have verified all the details. You check it, it's all good. Then what you do is, you go next. So basically, if you see here, T4, it has added T4 Memorial University. Now for example, if you worked 3 different places, you can select T4 and then you can add another T4 by clicking plus mark, and if you see here, it has added another new T4. So if you want, you can add as many T4s you want, and the same fashion follows. You match the boxes in the T4 and you add the information. In this case, the student only has one T4, so we will remove it. It's very easy. Once you say minus, you can say OK and we'll remove it. So we have the T4 added. Now we go next. This is the T4 I added. We go next. Now it goes for T4A. It also says pension, retirement, annuity and other income, but for scholarship it's T4A form. So the same process as T4, we select plus and it should show up something like this. So we'll go back and we'll look for what our sample student has. So this is how the rough T4A looks like, and our student has a T4A here. So the PS name is Memorial University, and that's what we will write here. And if you don't know how to get or from where to get your T4A, T4 or tuition fee form from Memorial University, there's a video on the International Office website showing from where to get the documents. So we have added the employer or who issued it. Now whatever boxes are empty, you'll keep it empty. So in generally T4A, what happens is most boxes are empty because this is basically for pension or something else. We the scholarship or non-taxable income falls under other income, and that's why if you see other information, it shows here. So this student had funding for $1,854.52, and it's generally box 105. So you see boxes numbered here. In this, the boxes are filled, and it's filled by the system which issues it. So here the box is 105. So we'll go back to our ufile software. Now if you scroll down, as you go through, you won't see box 105. So if you see here, there's other information, and if you go back, it says other information. So you select on the box here, and if you see, you should see 105. Now depending on what projects you are currently dealing with, you will select those, but for most students it will be 105, scholarship, bursaries, fellowship. Same principle as earlier, you add the amount 1854.52, 1854.52. Simple as that. We don't touch any other boxes because it's not required, and we add next. So if you see here, you will see T4A, Memorial University added. Now if you have more T4As, the same process, you can click on plus, and that will generate a new form to be filled up. Since we don't have any more T4A, we'll move forward. Next, next. Now we don't fill anything here because we don't have anything, and same thing for this, we don't touch it, we go next. Now this is the third part. So first we did was T4, second was T4A, now we are doing medical expenses. So you click plus. Now under medical expenses, you can claim your insurance premiums as well as your medical expenses. Now medical expenses which can be claimed are those which are paid out of pocket, meaning that which are not refunded by your insurance. So first thing we start with insurance premiums, and we'll go back. Now this is a rough example again for insurance premiums. If you see, there's grad student dental insurance and student health insurance for a particular semester. So what we'll do is we'll write down date as starting semester date, and then we write down graduate health and dental insurance. Now you have an option that you can accumulate the insurance fee for entire year, entire semester, or whatever form you want. So if you are using for entire year, you can just write down yearly, and then you can mention the total amount. So the total amount would be, so I've clumped dental and health together, and I'll be clumping it for 3 semesters, so which should be around $600 or $700. So whatever is the total, that is what you add. And in case if you are just adding it semester wise, per semester, so you can just write down per sem, then you can write down the total. So the rough total is around 223. So you can write down, and then you can again click plus, and then you can add it for next semester, next semester. Same thing, graduate dental health insurance, and then you can write the amount. In my advice, it's better to clump it for the entire year and just add once, because it saves you time and effort in order to just do it in one go. Now if you have any medical expenses, like you visited a dentist, you can fill that up. So for example, you visited a dentist on 1st of December 2019. Write down dental treatment, and whatever specification, if you went for scaling and stuff, and you write down the amount which was not covered by your insurance. So you write down the exact amount which you paid out of pocket. So maybe it was $200 25 cents. So that is what you add, and you can add whatever treatments you paid out of pocket. Remember, you cannot add whatever you are reimbursed by your insurance provider. So this is what we'll do. Since I didn't have dental treatment, I'll just remove it for this case purpose, and I'll add another for the last semester. Same thing. Again, this is a rough approximation because it's a dummy file. I'm not going to submit this. So now we have added our medical expenses, meaning our insurance premiums, and then we click next. And once we go next, you see here our medical expenses has been added, and we are in tuition fee. So you see here it's T22 tuition and enrollment. We click plus, and the same thing generates. So we'll go back to our tuition fee. Now this is a sample tuition fee for 2018, but the form has been changed for 2019. So this is how your form would look like currently, but the information remains the same. The only thing they have added is they've added social insurance number, so it's much more confidential now. But just for an example, I'll go over and I'll add the details what I have here. So it says enter description. So what was the description? It's Master of Science, Master of Science, and then you add, if you are adding it for the entire year, you will add yearly tuition fee, and you add the amount here. So now again, though it says box 26, but there's no box here. But if you see here, the box 26 is here. So the same process as T4, you match the boxes and you add the information. But again, this is a previous year T4 means T2202A, so just taking the information here. But for you guys who have new tuition fee forms for 2019, you will see the box numbers, and that's what you match. So you write down 2016, whatever you have here. In this example case, I'll mention this 214866, 2148.66. Now you don't have anything for foreign, so that's fine. Now this will ask for part-time, whether you are a part-time student or a full-time student. Now you fill either this or this. This is just for major functional deficiency, which most students won't qualify for. So you either fill box 24 or 25. So going back, this student was a full-time student for all months, so you say 12 months. So we'll write down here for full-time 12 months. Now for current forms, you see it's here 24 and 25. So whatever numbers you have, you fill the corresponding boxes with that number. Now the tuition credits, we don't need to add that currently, and if you don't know what tuition credits mean, please check my video on tuition credits, and we'll just keep it as it is. Now there's an option to transfer tuition credits. So if you have been through my video for tuition credit transfer, you can transfer amount up to $5,000 to your spouse, partner, parent, grandparent, provided that they are making good amount of money and it will be helpful to them. Now there's a form to be filled out, but you can do it online as well. But for most international students, this won't be the case, so you will keep it as it is. You won't touch it. You go next. So we won't be adding anything here. You go next. Now since we have added all our information, we got our identification done, our address done, we added our T4, T4A, medical expenses, meaning insurance premiums, and tuition fee. Now you also have an option to start direct deposit. Now it's always a good idea to enroll in direct deposit. The reason meaning that if you change your residential address after you submitted your tax file, and once you submit your tax file, they will send out notice of assessment or your check or your refund to your mailing address, and if you have relocated, then you won't get your check. So it's always a good idea to register for direct deposits. So you click plus, it will ask you whether you want to start direct deposit, you say yes, and then you add the details. Now you can get these details through your online banking or through your check. If you have questions how to get this, please go and visit your bank and ask for these details, because it's always a good idea to register for direct deposit. It just makes sure that you are getting your refund directly into your account. Since I don't need to do that, I'll just remove it, and if you want it in direct mail or normal mail, you can just remove it. You don't need to add it. So we'll go next, and now in this one most boxes you'll keep empty, but you will see this question: do you wish to have the estimated GST tax credit? You will say yes. Now this is what for most students file income tax for. So in my first video I have explained that GST HST is a quarterly benefit which all Canadians are entitled to, especially if they fall in lower income tax bracket. So once you say yes, what happens is you will be entitled to quarterly payments, which may be roughly anywhere from $60 to $100 or $150 every quarter, and so you say yes. So what this basically means is that whatever stuff you buy in everyday day-to-day life, you pay GST HST on that, and part of that government gives you back. So that's why you say yes here. You don't touch anything else and you go next. Now if you see here, it will ask for enter the Canadian free code for students, and we have it here, CFS 1981, and then you go next. Now it will ask you, it will give you a few tips. Do you have a spouse or dependents, or did the interview miss anything? Now in case if you have a spouse, you add spouse here. Once you select plus, it will open the same option as here, and you can add all the details. And same thing, if you have a children or a child, you add dependent here. Now in this case the student doesn't have those, so we'll go next. Once you go next, I think it has all the information added in, so there's no next. So you have finished your interview part. Now you go to review. Now what the review does is it will ask, or it will show if there are any errors. So if you go and select the errors, it says the value for social insurance number is not correct. Now there's option which ufile gives is that if you do not know your SIN, you may enter all 0. So it will be so they will calculate the tax return temporarily, but once it goes through, you will be required to enter correct SIN. So it's always good to check your SIN number. So I'll go back, and you have to confirm the email address. So let's go back and fix it. So that's why I like ufile a lot, because it shows what are the errors and it will try to help you change it. I'm just adding another random number just to make sure at least I get to the final page. I won't be submitting it because it's not the real stuff. And it said, let us go back to review and then again check errors. So the software has directly detected it's not a valid social insurance number. So in case if this happens to you, you will need to do the same thing and then add 000. And let fix the email address option. I forgot to confirm it, so you go down and I need to say yes, and that should do it. So I need identification. Just to proceed further, I'll just add 000 and that should be good. I'll go again to review. So now if you see, the total refund is 1469.99. Now if anyone owes any money to CRA, this would be in orange or red color. It won't be green color. If it's green color, meaning that your balance is good and you will be getting money back. Now this is again a rough estimate. The final amount is determined by Canada Revenue Agency when they process it. So once you have this, you will select. Now you can go and you can select messages to see if everything is good. And again, it is giving me warning that social insurance number is missing, but that's fine. We know why it's missing, and everything else should be good. So now the student here is getting a good return, and the reason for that is that he or she's employment income was higher, $11,000, and he or she had, one moment, total income tax deducted was $1,306, and they paid excess CPP, as well as part of EI was refunded, as well as medical expenses part was refunded. So total refund came to this amount. So it's always a good idea to add everything whatever you have and let the software calculate it. So although the income tax deducted was 1300, but the student is getting almost $100 more because they added all their information, and whatever is excess, the software is giving it back. So once you have checked this, you go to tax return. Now again, this is something which will show up. You always check your full name, you check your SIN number, and you check your birth date, because these three are the vital details on the basis through which the software will transmit your return and whether it will be accepted or not. So in this case, I'll just accept, just to show you folks how it works. So once I've accepted it, what it does, it generates a PDF, so which is an entire summary of what I've submitted. And what we do is, you can download the PDF if required, or you can keep it as it is, doesn't matter. Now regarding GST HST quarterly payments, which I was discussing, if you scroll down, if you see here, there's GST credit calculation, and let me go a bit lower, and if you see here, this is what it shows, that in July 2020 the person will get $83, in October 2020 $83, same for January 2021 and April 2021. Again, this amount may change, but this is the refund on GST HST which the student will get every 4 months. This amount is different for all students, but generally it falls in window of $60 to $150. So once you are ready with this, you don't need to check the entire document because it's very complex, but I was just showing you GST HST. You go to net file. So net file is basically submitting everything online. Now it says there are errors preventing filing, but if everything is good, you should see a green arrow ready for filing here. And once you select that, anyways, it brought me back because I need to fix my errors, my SIN number. But once you select that, you will be able to send the tax file online. So meaning that you'll be submitting your tax return online. You don't need to physically send any documents. Now there are two things. One, if the tax return doesn't go through, although everything was provided correctly, you go back to the interview tab and you select and check your identification. You check your first and last name, and if required, you can add your middle name with a space and then your middle name, and check your SIN number and date of birth. Once you have made those changes, you go back to net file and you submit. And in case it fails again, you can still try and check your name, especially for those who have 4 parts of names. But if your name is correct and all details are correct and it doesn't go through, then the best bet is to go to tax return and download the PDF. And once you download the PDF, send the entire PDF to Sudbury Tax Center. So you can just go and Google Sudbury, tax center address. You click select, and this is the address where you send your file. So once and you only send the file if the online return doesn't go through. If you submit your online file and if it says accepted, then you don't need to worry about anything. Sorry. And if it doesn't say accepted and rejected, and after multiple tries, after changing the name, verifying details, it doesn't go through, then you download the PDF and you send it to Sudbury Tax Center. Now remember, ufile will give you 3 or 5 trials before it locks your account, so just keep in mind that it's not infinite trials. So this is how you submit your ufile return. Once you have submitted it, you go to settings and then you log out. So we went through all the documents the student had. Few things to remember: childcare expenses can be included if you have receipts to prove the expenses. You can also claim moving expenses if you moved more than 40 kilometers for work or study, which is the case for most international students. But again, moving expenses counts as credit for that specific year. So if you have high taxable income, you should claim moving expenses. But if you don't have any income, or if you don't have high taxable income, then it is okay if you don't claim it, but it is up to your decision if you want to claim it or not. And let me show you. You go to interview and then you go to interview setup, and then if you scroll down, this is moving expenses. So select this and then you press next, and you will be able to see a new window for moving expenses, and then you can add your moving expenses here. So depending on where you moved, for closer to your school, you could use simplified method and then you add the details in these boxes. But again, it is up to your wish, individual student's situation. If you want to add, you should. It depends up to you. Same for medical expenses as moving expenses, because those money or those amount won't be refunded to you. It will just act as credit in order to lower your tax slab. Now there are a lot more details that can be included, but that will be different for each student and may not be required for most international students, so you don't need to worry about it. Things to keep in mind: you can file for your partner, spouse if they are in Canada. If they are not in Canada and if you are married, for tax purposes you mention married and not separated, as I highlighted earlier. Separated in term for taxes means that you are not staying together, as you don't want to stay together. And please list the dependents when you file the taxes if you have children. Another thing, use the current address when filing taxes, because again, you need to make sure that whatever refund or checks are sent out, you get it. Make sure you keep all tax slips and documents for at least 7 years, as CRA can ask for proof of information in future years. Now if they need any documents, they'll send a letter asking for the document, and you respond to them by sending back the document and explanation later through normal post or mail. Sorry, it has been a long webinar. And remember, they will not call you and ask for your personal details. So if someone calls you and if they ask for your SIN number or stuff, in most cases they won't. So if you are getting a call, chances are it's a scam. So don't fall for one. And Do not share any text files or documents with anyone, because in most situations you won't be required to share any of those documents. Now, few situations which may make your profile complex is if you have self-employment income like high-paying cash jobs or contracts that are paid through checks, or catering business or any freelancing business, or if you own any property or you're transferring property, or if there's any settlement going on, if you have registered retired savings plan, which most students don't, so it should be fine. If you have TFSA, RIF, investment income, student loans in Canada, or for any complex situation, please go for professional tax filing services, because this webinar doesn't answer those questions. Again, thank you very much. This is the information for March 2020. The information and the process may change in future, but it is current up to now. For ufile, please contact their online support if you are stuck. And remember, each situation is different and will require tax filing according to their personal situation. This is just a general example of how to file your taxes. Thank you very much. In any questions or any queries regarding a simple tax situation, always feel free to send me an email. Thank you very much and have a nice day.